So he said, she thinks with her heart, and when her heart is broken, her mind is too. Hey Black Stars, welcome back. My name is Anastasia, and today I am reviewing Sunset Baby, which was put up by the Signature Theater and written by Dominique Morrisseau. Let's get into it. So we're dedicating today's episode to Lorraine Hansberry. And she is a favorite of mine. And yes, she is the first Black woman to have a play, the first Black woman playwright to have a play on Broadway. But she's also so much more than that. Let's talk about it. I'm going to pour some water for her. And I'm going to just set that here. So Lorraine, born and raised in Chicago, and she was from a very Black family, like so Black that her brother went on to start the African Civilization Department at Howard. I don't think it gets any Blacker than that, right? So the play that she's most known for, and the one that made her the first Black woman playwright to have a Broadway show, is titled Raisin in the Sun, which in and of itself is a reference to Langston Hughes. She's also known, in addition to her plays, she's known for her activism work. She was very pro-communism because she felt like capitalism was a system that was oppressively racist, and that it applied its pressure to different groups more than others. She was also very active for women. She's talked about how women are twice oppressed, and that gives them the right to be twice militant. I'm with it. I like it. She was also, or is also, a queer icon. She came out during her lifetime, but when she passed away, they did, her former husband did keep some of her letters that would have outed her, and those were not actually released until much later. But she wrote for a number of magazines, some of which were like openly lesbian magazines, so it is not a secret that she was a lesbian, but I think we talk about that a little bit less when we talk about her legacy, which is why I want to mention it here. She died at 34. She was with us for a good time and not a long time. She died of pancreatic cancer. And when I think about the show I just saw, Spiritus, Virgil's Dance, it just reminds me that life is short, right? Like, I don't think Lorraine Hansberry knew she was only going to be around for 34 years. But look at all she did in the time that she was here. So let's make the most of every one of the days that we have, because we really don't know when that last day is coming. And the reason why I want to dedicate this episode to Lorraine Hansberry is not just because Dominique Morrisseau, the woman who wrote this play, is also a Black woman who writes plays, but there is a recurring kind of theme around Nina Simone in the show Sunset Baby, and the main character of the show is actually named Nina after Nina Simone. And Nina Simone, one of the songs that she wrote was called To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, which was, out of respect for Lorraine Hansberry, that was the title of her autobiography. And Lorraine was also, I Googled this, y'all, this was new information for me, but Lorraine Hansberry was also the godmother to Nina's daughter. So there's a very close relationship between Lorraine Hansberry and Nina Simone. And also Lorraine Hansberry is an amazing, amazing playwright. I would have loved to see what else she would have come up with had her life been a little bit longer. But as we honor the legacy that Lorraine has left behind, I want to make sure that we're also celebrating the playwrights who are here with us and making work right now. So sending deepest thanks to Lorraine, leaving some water there for her today as we go through this episode. So the context, how did I find out about this show, Sunset Baby? This was also an off-Broadway find. And for those of you who have been following along, you know that I was trying to save some money by looking for tickets for Off-Broadway week, but I could not find any shows that really highlighted Black creativity, Black artistic agency on the Off-Broadway website for the city. And I ended up having to do my own research, and I came across two shows. One was Spiritus Virgil's Dance, which is an Off-Broadway show, and the other one is this one, Sunset Baby. So Signature Theater has like multiple theaters inside of a complex, but it is off Broadway. So not off, right? It's not really small, it's just off. And I have to be honest, I am a fan of the work that the Signature Theater does. I know I've been more than once, but the show that stands out in my memory the most from having gone to Signature Theater is Venus by Susan Laurie Parks. And Venus was about the Hottentot Venus, or the woman who was known as the Hottentot Venus. She was brought here from Africa as a spectacle, and people would stare at her shape. Scientists made a lot of kind of conjectures of why she was shaped in the way that she was. She just had a fat ass. And there are a ton of comparisons. I won't get into that right now, but there are a ton of comparisons that can be made between that show Venus and today's obsession with ass size. So I love what the Signature Theater does because they support artists, playwrights through residencies. So Dominique Morrisseau is wrapping up her residency with Sunset Baby, and I am so upset that I missed her two previous shows. I missed Confederates and I missed Paradise Blue. But if and when they come back to Broadway, whether it's a Signature or a different theater, I will be in that number. I'm not going to make the same mistake again. So since I spent most of the context kind of talking about how I find the show, but I already gave y'all that whole story in my Spiritus review, I actually want to shout out the team for Sunset Baby. Quick story before I shout out some of the people on the team for this show. When I went to the show, I was handed two items, right? This, which is like, it's just two-sided. It has the poster of the show, and then on the back it has all the people who worked on it, but it doesn't have like their bios or anything. And then I'm also given this little card that says Playwrights Permissions of Engagement. If you have ever been to a Black church, you don't need this. For instance, it says, it means you are allowed to laugh or gasp audibly and give all the mm-hms and mm-ms you feel inspired to give. Okay, I feel like I already knew this, but I can understand, having attended the show, why something like this was necessary. But at the bottom, it says if you can scan the QR code for the full program, or you can ask for a printed copy. Now, y'all may or may not know this about me, but I'm a paper girly. If you have something on paper, I want it. I want to see it. Also, for the purposes of putting together this show, it's really helpful for me to have things not on my phone, but in writing. So as I was flipping through this packet that they gave me, which is the printed program, and to be clear, I'm not upset, right? Like, this is actually very helpful, this 8.5 by 11. I feel like I went to Staples and like printed out my readings for class. And it's, actually for people who might be like vision impaired, because the print is quite large and there's a lot of spacing. But what I'm trying to get to is, as I was sitting in my seat, flipping through these papers, right? There was an older white man sitting next to me, and he looked over to see me going through this paper, and you could see him looking back and forth to see why I was the only one who had one. And he waits a moment, and then he turns to me and he says, "Are you pressed? Is that a press kit?" Now, I'm flattered. In a way, I am pressed, right? But I got this because I asked for it. But, thank you for seeing me as a professional theater goer and not just a girl in the audience. And so I told him it wasn't a press kit, it was an accessibility program, and that he could get one by, just walking out to the accessibility desk where they hand out listening devices, one of which he already had, and he could get his own. He was not interested in that option, and he asked me if he could see mine, and I gave it to him. The point I'm trying to make is, I'm not mad at that man for asking me. I'm not mad at his expectation that I share my program with him. If there's anyone that I'm mad or disappointed at, it's myself. Because I don't think I have the audacity to ask someone that, a stranger in a theater, as they're actively looking through the program, they might be reading something. And I want for all of us, every single Black star watching this, past, present, future, to feel the entitlement that he felt to my program. I'm going to feel it. Y'all are going to feel it. We are walking through the world entitled, y'all. He did give it back, as you can see, but we got to talk about audacity. We've got to talk about standing on business and not letting anybody make you feel like you can't have something. Because according to him, he can have everything that's mine. Now, when I actually looked in the packet, and I'm so happy that I had this large print because I could really get into it, I was pleasantly surprised to see at least 10 people whose work I was familiar with, meaning I was going to see their work in this show, but I had also seen them somewhere else. And so I just want to name those names and those works because I think it's so cool, and I'm beginning to realize, even though I'm not of the theater world, that it is a very small community. So there's 10 people I want to highlight. Number 1, Dominique Morrisseau, the playwright herself. And I just want y'all to know that she is the Tony Award nominated book writer on the Temptations musical. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And she's working on her latest, y'all are going to love this, Hippest Trip, the Soul Train musical. We're going to have to go see it. So that's number 1. Number 2 is Steve H. Broadnax III. He was the director of the show, and he was also the director of Thoughts of a Colored Man, which I did see when it was on Broadway a few years back. So thank you, Steve, for your contribution. Next, we have Russell Hornsby. He was in the cast. Y'all have seen this man literally everywhere. I've seen him in Fences. I also saw him in The Hate U Give. He is so good at playing dads. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying he can't play other stuff, but it was just something about his presence. He gives dad. Not Zad, not Zaddy. He gives dad. He gives father, and he gives it well. Moses Ingram. Now, for me, this is a name to watch because when I read her bio, I haven't watched The Queen's Gambit. I haven't seen Lady in the Lake, and this is on me, right? I know these were like big things, but she was amazing in the show, so she is a name I'm watching. Now, J. Alphonse Nicholson is the last cast member, and I watched P-Valley, so of course I know who he is. It was so cool to see him on stage after seeing him on P-Valley, and then also in They Cloned Tyrone, which is on Netflix, and I recommend it. I liked that movie a lot. Okay, so now we're getting into behind the scenes people whose work I am familiar with. Emilio Sosa, costume design. He did the costumes for Pearly Victorious, which I saw and loved. They're like period costumes, like antebellum, post, right after the Civil War. He did the costumes for Spike Lee's Red Hook Summer. Y'all already know I'm a big Spike fan. And, y'all will like this, he did the costumes for Usher's Las Vegas residency. Now, if one of you could name what Usher was wearing in any of the clips you've seen, I'd be impressed. Because all I remember is the person who he made, blush. But I know those costumes were amazing from Emilio. All right, so we've got Alan C. Edwards on lighting design. And I will admit, I'm trying to learn more about how the lights impact the show. I would love to talk to Alan and just learn more about what he does. Because it's working, right? I could see all the things I'm supposed to see. But I just want to know more. So I saw his work during the summer stage at Marcus Garvey Park when the Classical Theater of Harlem did 12th Night. So great job, Alan, in that and at Sunset Baby. Okay, we have 3 more people, y'all. So we got Jimmy Keys, aka Jay Keys. It says he's done a lot in the music industry, but I want to shout him out because he is married to the playwright, and I just love Black love, and I love the idea of them working together. So my shout to Jimmy is really based on marriage, but I'm looking forward to seeing even more of his work. It says he's working on an EP. Anne C. James. Here's what I love about Anne's bio. Anne C. James made her debut as the first Black intimacy coordinator of Broadway in 2021. Anne, tell them who you are, sis. I was honored to know that I have seen Anne's intimacy coordination work before when she worked on White Girl in Danger by Michael R. Jackson, which was that show is out of this world. But honestly, another must-see, I would say. So thank you, Anne, for your work on both shows. And finally, I want to give a shout-out to the 10th person. Her name is Shiku Tuo, and she was the assistant stage manager. And I don't know how many people follow stage managers, but I'm following her now because I also saw her when she was the stage manager for the Whitney album at the Soho Rep Theater. So I just am so pleased to see this amazing team in the Sunset Baby Show. I'm happy that they gave me this large print program so I could really deep dive into all of the credits. And I just want to say thank you to the team. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. The other thing I should say about context is before the show, I would suggest seeing it before, but most people, when I went to go see it after. There is a big wooden structure that has a lot of information about the world of Sunset Baby. So as I get into the summary, I think you'll understand why some of these topics would be on there. But revolution, life in East New York, the Black Panther Party, the relationship between Dominique Morrisseau's father and some of the characters in the show. So definitely take the time to read that. You all know I'm all about listening to the writers, listening to the artists. So in the same way that I said you should watch the Alicia Keys and Swizz Beatz interview about Giants, you should read The World of Sunset Baby before you go see the show. And Dominique also wrote a very nice playwright's note in the beginning of the program, and I would suggest giving that a read as well. And that is the context. All right, so now I have the task of summarizing this show without giving it away and telling you the whole thing. So if my summary feels like a cliffhanger, I have done my job. Let's talk about the set. So the set is a one-room apartment with no bathroom, because you see the characters coming in with a bathroom caddy, the kind I used to have in college. So it's very clear that if the main character wants to shower, she has to leave her apartment, go through her front door in order to get clean, brush her teeth, all that. So it's not a pleasant place, and I'm not saying that based on my own opinion of what I live there. It is intentionally staged as an unpleasant place, the kind of place that you would be like, I live here right now, but I'm working on my next spot. The show centers around a woman who I would describe her as orphaned by the revolution. She is not a literal orphan, but she is a grown woman at this point when the show takes place. Her dad, his name is Kenyatta, he was in prison for most of her childhood. And her mom, named Ashanti X, who we never see in the show because she has passed away, was on drugs after her dad left. So you have this young woman who really had to learn how to fend for herself starting at a very young age. So she's making it on her own in East New York, and this is the 2000s. And if you don't know about East New York, just imagine a hood. Now, every hood has its own, unique flavor, but you could put this story in almost any hood and it would still make sense. So just imagine whatever hood feels relevant to you, y'all. But let's talk about the 2000s. Flip phones. Bags with a lot of pockets. I don't know why we had these bags. iPods, iPod stereos. All of these things were prominent in the show. And each time a character pulled out a flip phone, I just had to, I had to cringe because I was there, y'all. But they do a good job. Props does a good job of really taking us back to the 2000s. So our main character, her name is Nina, and she explains that her job is selling drugs and robbing niggas. And she doesn't do that by herself. She does it with her boyfriend, Damon. And they've been together for like 2.5 years. And their whole thing is that they try to stack 10K so that they can get out the hood and really out of the country. So it's like they have like a hood Bonnie and Clyde. Like, that's their dream, right? We're going to get 10K. We getting out of here. That's their whole thing. And that's what they do day in and day out. They sell drugs and they rob niggas until her dad shows up. So when her dad shows up, it's clear that she hasn't seen him in a long time. And there's a lot of anger there. And her dad is asking her about some letters. Some letters that her mom, Ashanti X, wrote to her dad when he was in prison. And dad is like, let me get these letters. Now Nina's like, you must want these letters because you want some money. Because people have been asking me about these letters, and I'm telling you, I don't have them. I don't have nothing for you. Get the fuck out of my house. Dad leaves, but not before he like annoys Nina to death, reminding her about the revolution and why they named her after Nina Simone, because she was a revolutionary and a radical, and it pains him to see her living like this in this unpleasant place. All that, right? So after she kicks her dad out, dad circles back and has a conversation with her boyfriend, Damon, because he's still trying to get these letters. Nina is like a Concrete Rose type character. Remember, this story takes place in the hood, right? So she made it out, or made it alive. She survived by any means necessary. And then you have Damon, and Damon is J. Alphonse Nicholson's character. He is described as smart on his Malcolm in prison shit. So, y'all know the people who, like, they probably didn't go to school, whatever that means to you traditionally, but they know a lot, right? Like, they can quote Stokely Carmichael, and they'll, you got to know your history, young blood, like that kind of energy. That's Damon, but he's young. He's not like an uncle figure. And then Dad is kind of a washed-up revolutionary, but he's famous in the streets, right? Like, young black people are like, oh my God, that nigga's a legend, like, because he did prison time for the cause. So that's the kind of the scene between all three of these characters. What's going to happen with these letters? What's going to happen with Nina's relationship with her father? Can she trust her boyfriend? All of those questions come up. And in terms of themes that are in the show, I actually found a few. And again, it's difficult to fully unpack my themes without telling you exactly what happens in the show, but give me a chance. I'm going to try my best. So the first theme, and I really think that all art is about love, but this show is really about love. Questions of, when do you feel love? Are you the type of person to feel love easily? Or is love kind of hard to come by for you? Is love reserved for family and your partner, but nobody else gets love from you? When you do feel love, how do you show it? Can you say it out your mouth? Can you provide affection? Do you know your love languages? So it will definitely bring up questions around love, showing love, feeling love, receiving love. Themes of vulnerability and the lack of vulnerability. All of the characters in the show have been through something. And so their ability or inability to be vulnerable colors their interactions with each other. And it leads me to ask, like, where are my hard spots? There's some things I'm so eager to be vulnerable about. And then there are other things where I'm like, ooh, don't touch that. That's my third rail. Scoot it back. Right? So for the characters in this show, they have quite a few third rails. And I feel like they're always just jumping on each other's, which makes for a very dramatic experience. Another theme is dreams. What are your dreams? Who do you share them with? And to what extent do you believe in your dreams? Some people dream and dream and dream, but to them, that's all they are. They have no intention on actually making those dreams a reality. And sometimes it's nice to have dreams that are just dreams, right? Like, I'm going to marry Usher. It's just a dream. I'm not even sure I want to meet him, right? But it's just a dream, and I'm comfortable with that. The next theme, sentimentality. What's valuable to you? Money? Love? Mementos? Photographs? Memories? And finally, in that same vein with sentimentality is inheritance. When your elders become ancestors, what will they leave to you? And out of those things that they leave to you, what will feel important? If your parents named you, my parents named me, I will always have that as a form of inheritance, like the character Nina in the show. Nina's mom also left her these letters that have two types of value. Sentimental value to Nina, but also a potential monetary value if she sells them. And I think the type of inheritance my father often talks about wanting to leave me is like peace. He is always talking about, when we bury him, he doesn't want there to be any outstanding debts. He doesn't want us finding out any family secrets. Because in his own life, death has always unpacked like this new section of things he has to deal with, and he doesn't want that for me, which I think is quite kind. But he's still with us, thank God, so I don't know just yet. But themes are love, vulnerability, dreams, sentimentality, and inheritance. Those are the things that stood out to me in the show. So hopefully I've given you a sense of what to expect without fully giving it away. And next I'm going to go into my thoughts. My thoughts. I really do try to categorize these for you all before I do a review. I have to say though, Dominique really, in my opinion, outdid herself, because my thoughts they're along a spectrum, actually like a wide spectrum. In the same way that I found a bunch of different themes, my thoughts kind of go in a few directions. So if you want to go on this journey with me, stay tuned. If you just want to know how many stars I'm giving the show, you have permission to skip ahead to the review. Just use the chapters down at the bottom of the screen. So my first thought is, it seems to me like every revolutionary, their highest dream in life, a garden. Which is so funny to me, because speaking of the theme of vulnerability, having a garden is like peak vulnerability. You are living at the mercy of the sun and the seasons. If the sun doesn't shine, if the rain doesn't rain, you don't get to eat. Very vulnerable. You got to trust your neighbors and the animals around the area that they're not going to eat all your cabbage on the day you wanted to have cabbage, right? That they're not going to eat all your collard greens before New Year's Eve. A garden also represents connecting with the earth. And when I think about certain types of revolutionaries, I don't think about earth, right? If someone is an eco-revolutionary, obviously their whole thing is trees and the earth, the planet. But when someone is a different type of revolutionary, like when I think about like a Huey Newton, I can't really see him in the garden, but that might be the limits of my own imagination. So that's not necessarily a reflection on Huey. And when you have a garden, it's all about like sharing the bounty with others. And I just find it almost contradictory to how I think of revolutionaries. But when I heard it in the show, it really resonated with me as like, no, that is the revolutionary dream. Peak vulnerability, to be able to just take it all off, to stop the fight and just go with the flow of nature. Other, I think, revolutionary acts, in my mind, love. I probably overquote Beyonce, because I know she doesn't write all of these songs, but she does help. But in one of her more recent songs, My House, she says, let's heal the world with love, one beautiful action at a time. And that is something that means a lot to me. Like every action that you take, everything that you do, when you're getting on the subway, right? When you say excuse me, when you say thank you for the person who's holding the gate open, even if you don't go through it, all that little stuff matters, right? I think in that way we can heal the world. Now the revolutionary mindset is we can heal the world through fighting, through resistance. And one of the characters in the show talks about building a revolution through bloodline. That the most revolutionary thing you can do is have a child, right? And teach that child to continue the fight. Now, I think the most revolutionary thing you could do is to love that child, but that's one of the conflicts actually that comes up in the show. And if I can be candid just for a moment, this idea of men wanting to build revolutions through bloodline when women are often the ones who are actually raising the children, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, right? I'm going to have this child to stick it to the man, but then where are you when the child is actually born? The only revolution you're creating is one of anger and pain if you're not actually sharing love with this child. You can't bring someone into this world just to fight. You should be bringing people into this world to share love, to teach love and to share love with them. And in the same vein of revolutionary lifestyles, it has me thinking a lot about how we abandon the people we love in service of a cause. Now, I'm not just talking about revolutionaries, because I think this is the case for a number of people. It's people who have office jobs, and in their mind, their cause is profits, or their cause is promotion, and they are missing their child's birthday party, or they're missing their child's, piano recital, because they had to be at work. So now they've abandoned someone they love in service of a cause they didn't even know they were fighting for. You have to be clear on what your cause is, and then you have to put in the work for it. And you have to make sure that the people who deserve your time, your energy, your space are not suffering while you go fight for this cause. It's a very clear distinction when someone is a revolutionary and they locked up in prison, right? But I think in our own lives, there's opportunities for us to evaluate what causes we're serving and see where we might need to shift. There's a quote from the show that Mr. Hornsby delivers that as a woman, I said, I need to write this down in my notebook. So he said, she thinks with her heart, and when her heart is broken, her mind is too. As a fellow heart thinker, yeah, the two are connected. And it's such a powerful line. I have no notes on the line. I wonder if it will stand out to other people the same way it stood out to me. Feel free to leave a comment. But Dominique really got in her writing bag when she wrote that line. The characters in the show are all stuck with these very hard choices. And I can't give you too much of those choices. But just know that, they got to choose between A and B. And neither one of those is ideal. And there is no C. And as I'm watching this show, remember the person sitting to this side of me was a white man. The people to this side of me were also white. Everybody behind me. I was in row B, so everybody was behind me. There were 2 black people in front of me in A. Everybody else, for the most part, was white. Or white presenting, I should say. I don't know all their ethnicities and all that. But I'm not quoting James Baldwin, but I feel like it's something James Baldwin would say. Some people come downtown to see how people live uptown. Because remember, the show takes place in East New York, but it could be any hood, right? I live uptown. I live in Harlem. I'm sure it's people today in 2024 living out the questions and the complexities that were in this show. You could come to my building and just stand outside of some of the apartments and listen in. You don't have to go all the way downtown, pay good money to see how the other half lives. And it's, I guess, in a way distressing to me that people feel this safety of I don't mind watching it on stage, right? But I don't want it in my neighborhood. I don't want it in my building, but I'm entertained by it when I come downtown to see it. And there's nothing wrong with being entertained. I was entertained in the same way. This is not my life experience. But I hope that when people see art, when they see shows, they are having conversations with themselves and their peers about what they learned. That they are coming with, to borrow a phrase from my friend Renee, a heart posture that is open to learning. One of the characters in the show is kind of in this crunch of law enforcement, right? He started selling drugs to help pay for his child, right? To help support his child. For that same reason, because he got caught selling drugs, he can never have custody of that child. So he's in this crunch, right? And I'm just wondering if there are any judges in the audience who are thinking, wow, I never thought about it like that. You know, the next time someone comes to family court and asks me for custody and they have a record for selling drugs, I'm going to ask them to tell me a little bit more about how they got that record in the first place and what their plans are. I just hope that when people come and are observing these very real realities for real people in Harlem, for real people in East New York, that they are actually applying it to the interactions that they have with people every day. And just making sure that their hearts are open. The show was written in 2013. It's still timely in 2024. I think it's going to be just as timely in 2035. And so I hope that for everyone who sees it, they are thinking through how they can learn a lesson from this show and then apply it to their lives to give something back to the community and, you know, continue this idea of revolutionary love. Okay, the review. What you've been waiting for, possibly what you skipped over the thoughts to get to. I am giving Sunset Baby 3 black stars, and I am so happy to be awarding these 3 stars. I appreciated how this show explored the impact of the revolution on the next generation, because I think we sometimes romanticize that Black Panther period, right? We would have had afros, we would have been wearing the berets, we would have been carrying the guns, and I've fallen prey to that myself. And I think this was a really close look at, well, what happens when the revolution ends? The chips fall where they may, and there are people who are left behind. There are people on drugs, right? There are children who are heartbroken. There are fathers who have broken families. And I'm not saying that the revolution is to blame, but I think we need to be more honest about what the revolution actually did for our community. Both the upsides, right? The free breakfast, and the downsides. We got to be able to talk about all of it. So I appreciate the exploration on the impact. I feel it as a cautionary tale for today's revolutionaries. I think nowadays more people are being revolutionary on Instagram, so they're hopefully not abandoning their families. But I think it's a good reminder that revolution can start at home. It can start with the people you love the most. You don't have to leave them to go fight for a cause. This was a story that gave Black women, through the one Black woman in the show and also her mother who we don't meet, it gave Black women agency and the ability to make the choice that she felt was best, which I loved. Very moving performances from each and every cast member. Mr. Hornsby, every time he did these kind of like video confessionals, the work he was doing with his face, with the tremor of his voice, y'all, a masterclass. I am not an actor, but I really appreciate acting. Moses, also amazing in how she really helped you to feel the weight of these hard choices that Nina had to make. It was never like I'm presented with this, I know exactly what I'm going to do. There was there was silence in the show where she was really just letting you think through, what should she do, while she's thinking through what should I do. And she wasn't just sitting there looking at you, right? She's like moving around her apartment. But I thought she did a great job of bringing a heaviness, like really embodying a heaviness and being this concrete rose. And finally, for J. Alphonse Nicholson, because I had seen him on P-Valley, and that was my first introduction to him, it's very hard to separate Little Murda from the Damon character. But what I am impressed by is some people really can't transition from screen to stage. They need multiple takes. They need a camera. And again, I'm not an actor, so I'm not passing judgment. What I'm saying is, he can do it. You put him anywhere, I think he'll be just fine. So it's very cool to see him working in real time, because I've never gotten to see that. On P-Valley, it's edited. So amazing job to the whole cast. The writing was amazing. 3 stars for this show, and I really hope you all go see it. Which leads me to who I would take to go see the show. Now, to be clear, this is, when I say these categories of people, if I don't say black women, then the group is really, it's cross-racial, it's interracial. So, who I would take? People in law enforcement and the judicial system of all races, so that perhaps they could have a little more empathy for the situations that people find themselves in. I would take fathers. Any father. I would take my dad. I would take your dad. I would take the concrete roses in your life, the strong women that you know who maybe haven't been able to put their burden down. I think they would enjoy this show. Take those baby revolutionaries, those IG activists, and have a conversation with them about, where we can start to make a change. Take a real revolutionary. If you know somebody who's really living these causes, take them with you to go see them show. See this show. Give them a night off. Heart posture. Anyone who has a very open heart posture, or someone who needs to open their heart posture up, right? Like, why do we see shows? Why do we engage with art? It's not just to be entertained. It's also to feel something, to learn something about life through watching other people's fictional lives, which in some way are inspired by the lives of the artists. It is supposed to be a lesson in life. It's not just supposed to be ha-ha funny, then I go home and go to sleep. My opinion. I would take anyone who can't stop talking about Fred Hampton. I would take anybody who really liked Judas and the Black Messiah. That's me. I really liked that film. I think, like I said, the idea of what happens after a revolution, I think they would enjoy this show. Anybody who likes P-Valley and wants a closer look at Little Murda, obviously take them. Nina Simone fans, and I had to dig a little bit deeper for this one, and I am included in this group. You can take anyone who's had the privilege of travel. Sometimes I have to remember that some people have never left where they were born. And some people have traveled a really long way from where they're born and they've never been able to go back. Some people are stuck where they are for political reasons, for socioeconomic reasons, for psychological reasons, for familial reasons. So anyone who's had the privilege of travel, this show is a good reminder of what a privilege it is and how many people dream of seeing places that they may never actually get to. Where would I go after the show? I didn't actually go to this place, and I am trying to do a better job of actually trying the places that I recommend to y'all. Most of the time I do go, but this time I had to run. If you walk 3 blocks up on 10th Avenue, you can have some amazing Ethiopian food at Queen of Sheba. And like I said, I haven't tasted it, but I say it's amazing because it's been reviewed by the New York Times, by Eater. You can check out their website. Queen of Sheba, owned by an Ethiopian family, so black owned. Enjoy. Remember to wash your hands because it's no forks over there. I really appreciate everybody for watching this review. And I doubly appreciate anyone who, as a result of watching this review, goes to see Sunset Baby at the Signature Theater. Deepest appreciation for everyone who worked on the show, as well as Lorraine Hansberry for paving the way. And I hope that you'll be able to follow me on TikTok and on Instagram, because I'm posting many reviews of other art activities, art experiences there. And if you just want to see like pictures of me at shows, or not pictures of me, just pictures of the shows, those are on Instagram. So check me out in both places. I'm blackstar.reviews. I'll also put the link at the bottom, like in the description, so you can find me easily. It would mean the world to me if you put a like on the video, and also if you subscribed. I will be continuing to create reviews of Black creativity and Black art. And if you have a show coming up that you want me to come see, all you have to do is shoot me an email, and I will make every effort to be there. So thank you all so much for your time. Thank you to the cast and team of the show. And I'm wishing y'all Black love and starlight. And I want y'all to keep shining. Bye.